You're watching Rogers TV.
This program is brought to you by Ignite TV. Now you're in command. Visit Rogers.com for more details.
Wallace along with Denise, Reid, and this is an ongoing program. In fact, this is episode number 8 of Living Well, Giving Well, and to talk a little bit about the concept and not so much about what we're about, but what the program is about, here's Denise, Reid.
So Living Well, Giving Well, we talk about how we can give back to our community, whether that be volunteering. I guess that's the giving well part, is it?
Yeah.
That's the giving well part. Giving back in our community, whether that be volunteering or whether it's donations. I think we're trying to do the living well part, trying to get people to realize what they have to offer, what can be done in their community to plan themselves, or whether it's with other people, their funerals, their wills, etc. And Taylor's here again this week to talk about maybe more of the meat and potatoes of the funeral planning.
Welcome back to Taylor Brown from the Brown Family Funeral Home. Did you have a good time the first time you were here, Taylor?
I did. It was great.
I know your experience with radio. So let's talk about the business. And again, you've done it for a decade and a half in our region, and you have a long history in it. You mentioned it in our last episode, or touched on it. How much have things changed in terms of what used to be the traditional funeral service, and how easy or how gradual has that change come over the course of time with your experience?
Yeah, the change from when I started almost 30 years ago, where we were doing, fairly regularly, visitations and services, and then off to the cemetery for burial. And maybe, 15% of what we were doing was simple cremation. And I would say over the course of those 30 years, things have sort of flopped, where maybe what we're doing is about 15% of traditional funerals with visitation and service and cemetery burial, and a lot more simple cremation, and a lot in the middle. And that's, I think, that celebration of life, where people are trying to plan something that is meaningful to them and to their family.
So what is simple cremation?
So a simple cremation from our standpoint would be where we're helping the family do the things that they're not able to do themselves, where we're going to the hospital or the place of passing, and we're picking up their loved one, bringing them back into our care, taking care of filing all of the necessary paperwork, facilitating the cremation, and then having the cremated remains to give back to the family. And then they're either interring or scattering those cremated remains on their own, possibly planning a celebration on their own and their backyard or something like that.
With your experience, do you find yourself advising, or do you do more listening to the family when they come and see you?
So I try and listen to first understand,
right,
what it is they're looking for and what they're in need of. And then I think it's also our job to not just, do exactly as they're asking, but to give them some things to think about as well. And to make sure that they've thought of all the different options that are available. Because there's certainly times where people will, I don't want to say change their mind, but because there's options that are presented to them that they didn't know existed, will make different choices.
For sure. Yeah, I was just going to say, and in that, also we talked about in our last episode of when do you do your funeral, and you're saying now. Mm-hmm. And I think it would be a different conversation whether you have somebody coming in that's already done that pre-planning, or whether they're coming in when their loved one is already deceased. That's definitely a different conversation.
There's so much more stress on families when somebody has just passed away. whether the passing is sudden or whether it's been a longer illness. With longer illnesses, certainly you have time to say goodbye and you have time to have conversations with people and that. But a lot of families also find that they're exhausted by the end of that. They've been spending nights and time with their loved one as they've been ill. And so they come into the funeral home, and if the arrangements have already been completed by their mother, then there aren't the decisions there. There isn't that additional stress and trying to talk with siblings and other family members about, geez, what's best for mom, what should we do? It's already there and it's laid out.
And then I think, I mean, I'm going to go personal here. My husband has just finished doing all of that with his 94-year-old mother. And it's not only the peace of mind for him and us, his mom feels so much better that all of that's taken care of. And I think that that's important that way too.
Well, sure, she's probably decided on so many things throughout her life and been in charge of, all kinds of different things. And why shouldn't she have a say in the way her funeral should go as well? There's going to be, all kinds of different questions that come up about what's best for her.
And interesting, the thing too there to talk about, I need to have a funeral, or I need to, is it a celebration life? So there were all those interesting options that were given that there wasn't even a thought process of, or, to do. And I think that, it just makes everybody feel so much better.
It does. It really, it helps the person whose funeral it is feel better because they know that burden isn't there for their children, right? And the children also know that no matter where they are or what they're doing, whether they're away on vacation or whether they live in another part of the province or another part of the country, that if their parent passes away, they're picking up the phone, they're making one call to us, and we're opening up a file and we're saying, yes, we've got all your mom's wishes here, we know exactly what needs to be done. And then we're going to start looking after all that while they're doing what's much more important, looking after family, making travel arrangements and things like that.
This is Living Well, Giving Well on Rogers Television. Our guest is Taylor Brown. Taylor is the owner and also the funeral director for the Brown Family Funeral Homes in Port Elgin and in Owen Sound. We're talking about pre-planning on a percentage basis. How many people that you deal with have done the pre-planning? Or do people find the pre-planning process intimidating, or maybe they just don't know about it?
We're having more and more people pre-arrange their services. I'd say we're not quite, for when people have passed away, we're not quite at 50%. So, it's maybe a little more than 50% are coming in and sitting down with us and trying to go over those questions for the first time. And that can be pretty intimidating.
Very overwhelming.
It
very
is.
Overwhelming at that particular time. So I wanted to know, I was thinking, we're going old, funeral, church, burial, cremation. That has really, and I think as time has gone, that is becoming more, I don't know whether you say popular or
I'd say
more
prevalent.
Very, thank you for that. Thank you for that. And is yeah, exactly. Is that happening?
It is. And the thing I would say to people is cremation or burial, I would equate similarly, right? Cremation and funeral, not necessarily, because you can have a funeral and you can have visitation and you can have a reception and then be cremated, right? So you can still do all of the same things. And whether we go to the crematorium or whether we go to the cemetery is sort of the end decision there. So when people say, what they want for their what they want is cremation, there's still a large number of other questions that need to be decided upon. Do you want that cremation to take place before or after a service? Do you want a service in the chapel or at your church? Do you want to have a reception? Do you want to, all these different things.
Do you have to be patient with people? And I say that not because there's an issue with the people, but a lot of the things that you're talking about, probably we don't consider as a group. My glasses just fell. My glasses just died.
I think, yes, we certainly do have to be patient, because I find that a lot of the time, we're educating people about the choices that they can make. But also, for people that are coming into the funeral home right after somebody has passed away, we can only be patient to a certain point, because there are things that need to be answered, and there's things that need to be decided upon really in a timely fashion. And that's part of the reason why we really encourage people to come and do it earlier on, whether it be 5 years early, 10 years, 20 years early. The earlier you do it, the easier it is.
Sorry, Taylor. How long does the process take for Denise to come in and meet you, or me to come in and meet you, to do a proper pre-planning?
It really depends. The questions that we ask and we go through sometimes take an hour to an hour and a half. But then your decision process can take, 15 minutes, and we can finish everything in that visit. You might take things home. You might want to talk it over with your children. You might want to wait until your children come up at Thanksgiving to talk it over. It might be something that takes you, 2 weeks, 2 months, or 2 years.
But it's time well spent.
It is.
Well, for sure. And so I wanted to know if somebody wants a religious or faith-based, but they don't have a church. Like, do you have a minister or a priest or whatever? How does that work? That when they come in, you provide that?
Yeah, so whether somebody's religious or non-religious, when they come in and they want to have some type of a gathering, and if they don't have anyone who they can think of who's, has a relationship with them, we have a number of people who are either celebrants or retired ministers, and we work really hard with asking questions of the family to fit them with the right person to take care of that service. And we find that having somebody who's done services in the past really can change the tone of that time together.
Well, because it might be somebody that doesn't know your loved one, doesn't even know you, but to have the gift to be able to make that personal.
Yeah, and some of the people will recommend, they do a great job of sitting down with families and asking questions, and they don't pretend to know the person when they get up and they do the service, but they're there to help tell the person's story. And I think that's really what's important.
This is Living Well, Giving Well on Rogers TV, Grey County. I'm Fred Wallace along with Denise Reid. Our guest today is Taylor Brown. Taylor is the owner and the funeral director for the Brown.
Hi, I'm Sarah Cowley. I'm the CEO for the YMCA of Owen Sound Grey Bruce. Our YMCA is a charity that's dedicated to building healthy communities and safe communities and inclusive communities, and we do that through offering opportunities for every individual, no matter their age or situation, to grow in mind, body, and spirit. We provide early learning child and child care programs. We provide health and wellness and fitness supports in our Health, Fitness, and Aquatic Center. And we also provide community supports through our community initiatives like homelessness prevention programs, settlement and language services, justice programs, and programs for youth who are transitioning through the care system. The way our donations help across the association, and certainly facilities, because we do have facilities that we want to keep up for the next 100 years. We want to be providing services from those sites. And we know in order to keep our fitness facility and our sites running, we are going to need quite a significant amount of money over the next 10 to 20 years to keep going. Costs are rising, families are seeing the cost rising. We've seen a significant increase from $83,000 in subsidies last year to almost $150,000 subsidies paid this year at the end of 2023 for our fiscal year. And so we know people are struggling, and we know that people see their health and wellness and some of the services that we provide as a want rather than a need, when really it is a part of their total health. And so we need the community, the Y needs the community to continue to help us to build healthy communities. Without the Y, without the services we provide, many people will continue to struggle. And so we would ask for donors. Without donors, we can't continue to provide the services we are.
Episodes when it comes to making a will or whatever, it's a hard conversation. Like, do you, like, I you know, we have, my husband and I have our wills, but the funeral part of it, I'm still, you know, and I don't know how to get back past that.
It's a tough sell for a date night.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe with a few beers it might be, I don't know, but it is like, I just, it's a tough conversation to have.
It is, and it only gets harder. And that's the thing that I really encourage people about, is that if you think that it's hard now, how much harder is the conversation going to be after your husband has died? Yeah. And it really does make a difference for people to be able to come in and sit down with him and make arrangements and be able to express what you might need for his arrangements and have him do the same about what he might need for your arrangements.
So what do we, okay, my husband and I are coming in, you know, what do we need to bring anything? Do we need to have had discussions already about certain things, or?
No, I mean, if you've had discussions about things, that's great. If you have ideas about what you might like to do and what's important to you, that's good. And I think I had said before, the one question we ask people to do, or ask people, is not to think of their own funeral, but to think of their spouse's funeral. Okay? And the things that you would need. Would you need, if he were to have passed away today, an opportunity to see him again? When you call your children and you let them know that their dad has died, do they need an opportunity to see him? Do they need an opportunity to gather with friends and family, to share stories, and things like that? That can take place in that any which way you want, as far as that gathering. But asking some of those questions and having some of those answers are pretty important.
Oh, okay.
What's the size of a pre-planning session? So Denise and Brian come in as husband and wife. Do Jerry and Jess need to come in, or anybody, their children? What would you prefer? What would you suggest is ideal based on your experience, or is there an answer to that question, Taylor?
The answer is anything that makes you comfortable. And so if you're comfortable coming in on your own, or with your spouse, with your children, we encourage people to come with children, because I think it's good. The more ears, the better. We've had families prepare, you know, funeral plans as an entire family, where we've had brothers and sisters and their spouses and a parent present, and we've done, you know, 8 or 10 prearrangements all at the same time, because everybody's funeral is sort of affected by the other.
Right.
Wow.
So there really isn't an answer.
Okay. And again, just drawing on my own personal experience, and it was a good experience going with my mother, because if you knew my mother, she was an elementary school teacher, retired, back in an era when she put her hand down, that was the end of the conversation, and it was her wishes laid out for my ears to understand that this is the way it's going to be.
Yeah. And it's great that she had the opportunity and the ability to sit down and express what her wishes and her needs are to somebody.
What about the age? I'm going to guess that my mother might have been in her 70s when we did this. Is that far too late?
It's not far too late. I think that's probably a time that most people start to think about it. They've raised their children, and their kids are off and having families of their own, and that. And I think naturally we start to think about things maybe when we start to reach those senior years. I would suggest that we've probably thought about it earlier and just haven't acted on it. When we have children, most of us are going out and we're getting wills done, and we're choosing godparents, and we're purchasing life insurance and things like that for, you know, the case where if something were to happen, this is all in place. And certainly, the extension of that is sitting down with a funeral director and asking some questions and starting to prepare for what that service would look like. And that service that you sort of design when you're 50, as I had said, you come back when you're 60, you come back when you're 70, you come back when you're 90, and you make adjustments and changes to it.
I mean, you make the changes because maybe your life has changed, but also we're moving into different times as well. And as you've said before, is how the the funeral has changed, maybe to celebration of life, or do you want visitation? So not only is your own personal situation maybe changed, but times have changed too.
Yeah, and I think that's an important part for people to know, is that the plans that they make are not hard plans. They can come back and they can change those, whether a little bit or a lot. Whether they pre-plan or whether they prepay. And prepaying is...
I was going to say, I didn't know that there was a difference. I thought when you pre-planned, you prepaid as well.
You don't have to. There's
Okay.
no obligation to. When you come in
Okay.
and you make a plan with us, there's no cost to sitting down with us and doing that. There's no cost to putting your plan together and having a file kept.
Okay.
If you choose to prepay, you can do it in several different ways. You can move money into an account all at once. You can move money into an account over 5, 10, 20 years and have those payments insured while you're doing it.
I was going to say, years ago I used to work in a bank, and we used to have investments, GICs,
Yep.
that were, people had prepaid, like so the funeral homes would bring in, that was prepaid, so was getting interest in that. Is that still a process?
That's still exactly how it's done.
Okay.
And you bring up an important point as well, is that those accounts aren't our accounts.
Oh.
Those accounts are the accounts of the people who have made their arrangements.
Right.
And that money is their money. We're not able to use it for anything. It stays there in their account and continues to grow. The benefit of it being there and held through the funeral home is that it guarantees the cost, so that what they pay today is still guaranteed in 20 years. If their account grows faster than our cost rises, the extra money goes back to the family. If our cost rises faster than their account grows, because it's guaranteed, we're not able to go back to the family and ask for more money.
And we lived through that, certainly, again, from our own experience. What do you recommend? What's your primary recommendation with all of those options? When Denise and Brian come and see you, what do you say, Denise and Brian, in terms of prepayment and pre-planning?
Every family and every person is different. And we sit down and we listen and we go through it. We'll make recommendations based on the answers that you give us. And it might be that we recommend that you prepay. It might be that we recommend that, you just pre-plan and you have a file that's kept with us. But we're going to give you as much information as we can so that you can make up your mind as to what's best.
Yeah, and I can see where that would, individually, because let's say, when people retire and, the income isn't as much, fixed income as we call it in our seniors' age. Yeah, in our retired years. So I could see where, just depending on individually how that would go. That's an interesting point, because I really thought that once you went in to pre-plan, you were, even if it took 6 months or a year to decide and put all your ideas together, I thought that you needed to pay for that. But
no, not at all. And there's no cost at all to coming in and sitting down with us.
So there's no reason why we shouldn't do it.
There is no reason why.
What stops people from doing it? And again, that might be a psychological question, but you're in the industry. What keeps people from seeing you when they should, or as soon as they should?
I think that, to your point, people just don't know. They don't know what all is involved. They don't know what they might or might not be obligated to when they come in. And there certainly is, we understand, some fears and a bit of I don't want to go factor, for sure. And all that we can really do is do our best to make sure that people feel comfortable when they come in and make sure that they get all the information that they need, and then to be able to go home and just sit and talk with your family about it.
Taylor Brown is our guest, the owner and the funeral director at the Brown Family Funeral Homes in Port Elgin and in Owen Sound. our time has rocketed by. We've got lots of time left to live, but our time with you has rocketed by. Your priorities, or somebody's priorities, what should they be immediately right now if they're going to think about their funeral service and what's in front of them?
I would tell anyone who's listening that they should pick up the phone and call their funeral home, call their funeral director, and make an appointment to go in and sit down and to get the information. And then once they have the information, the decisions are entirely theirs. That's the best way to make plans, is to be informed about the choices that are there.
Well, Taylor, thanks for joining us, and thanks for sharing with us today on Living Well, Giving Well.
Yeah, and if, we put this out to our viewers a couple of weeks ago, if there's anything that you're interested or need information, about that we didn't cover today, where can they get a hold of you, Taylor? Besides, is it an email address or?
Yeah, so they can call us through the funeral home, 519-832-2222. Or they can go to any of our web pages or our Facebook as well. Tannehill Funeral Home, T.A. Brown Funeral Home.
Yeah, so that's great if you want to do that. We can get answers back to you.
Right on. Taylor, thanks again for joining us, and thank you for joining us today on Rogers Television. For Denise, Reid, I'm Fred Wallace. Remember, visit willpower.ca and consider leaving a gift to your organization, your charity, and the things that mean a lot to you. Thanks again for watching us on Living Well, Giving Well on Rogers TV, Grey County.
In Musqueam First Nation territory by my mother, who spoke Hunkaminam to me. As a child, I ceased using my mother tongue, as to use any language other than English was considered not being Canadian, so I was told. The old people came to me in a dream and reminded me of who I am and where I come from. I have reawakened. My roots are strong, and I'm no longer a silent speaker. My language tells me where I'm from. It defines me and guides me to teach others to learn and understand our culture and traditions. A gift for those in the present and the unborn generations. What was lost is found. What was asleep has awakened. My blood is here, and I am complete. I have returned home.
Connect with us by visiting our website or email us at comments@rogerstv.com.
Hi, I'm David Shearman, host of Politically Speaking on Rogers TV. Join me this fall for more interviews with our local, provincial, and federal politicians. Politically Speaking on Rogers TV.
Hi there, my name is Tracy Hinchberger and I represent the Kincardine District Chamber of Commerce. I hope you will join us for our next segment of Chamber Chat on Rogers TV, a fascinating behind-the-scenes look at some of our member businesses. You'll learn more about local special events, restaurants and retail, not-for-profit organizations, and services in this community. Check out our schedule at www.rogerstv.com for more information.